Okay. Thanks for coming back. If you're a new face, thanks for joining. I'm Peter Eze, for those that haven't been introduced to me. Territory Sales Manager for Onyx Graphics, covering the Western United States. I'm out of Phoenix, but Utah is my territory. We're headquartered in Salt Lake. They've been trying to get me to move to Salt Lake. If you get rid of the winters, I will join you in this beautiful state. So in this class, I'm going to be covering the tools, Onyx tools. Now, Onyx tools, there's a lot. I'm going to try to go through the most important ones, the things I feel like most people don't utilize that they need to utilize to get better performance with Onyx, to get faster production, make sure you go from file ready to print as quickly as possible. Tied into the color management section from before, the stuff I handed out to you, I'm going to explain what that is and why we've come up with that and how that helps you moving forward. So, everybody here uses Onyx, correct? Okay, so now some of the things I'm going to show on my screen right now is going to look a little bit different to what you have and know, maybe, but it's just because I'm using the most recent version of the software, which we launched last week. So you might see me do things a little bit differently, but that has to do with the version. So, one of the very first things, and again, I will point to the guys in front because I came in here 2 days ago and they invited me to their shop, which is, and I'll give you guys my business card. I'm always happy to do that when I'm in town. If you want me to stop by your shop, I will come by your shop, take a look at what you're doing, give my 2 cents as to how you can improve that process. But one of the very first things that I talk about that I mention as being key is quick sets. Do all of you use quick sets? Do you guys know what quick sets are? Okay. So what quick sets are, quick sets are automated instructions that you can set up. And you can set up as many as you like. You can literally have 1,000 of those if you want. But what you're doing with quick sets is it allows you to automate the stuff that you tend to repeat the most. So if you are a shop that does a lot of banners, and your banners have to have grommets, and you have to have folding or sewing lines, and all of those in your banners. Every time you open a file, yes, you could go in there and set it up. But if you're a shop that knows, like, hey, when we're printing, a 64-inch banner, we do grommet at 12-inch, distances from each other, 24-inch distances, whatever it is. You can set those up in a quick set to where whenever you bring in a file for a banner, that you're printing for a banner, instead of having to open up the software to do that step all over again, you've saved it the first time you did it, and you open the file with the correct quick set, and it applies those settings. And you can have quick sets that literally just rotate stuff 90 degrees. And be like, okay, I rotate all these files for these customers are always rotated 90 degrees or 180 degrees. That's just how they like it. I have a quick set set up for customer A. I call it customer A rotates 180 degrees. And every time me or my operators want to open those files, I just drag and drop into that, and it applies the setting. I don't have to go in and do that every single time. There's ways to set up the quick sets. In here, advanced, every single thing you see in here is stuff I could set up. If I was working with textile, I could set up step and repeats automatically in here. Every single thing, color correction, tile maps, I could do all of this. Even something as simple as bleeds. We do we're a shop, we like to add 1-inch bleeds to everything we print. It's our process. I don't have to go in there to do it all the time. I can set up my quick sets, and every file I open, it adds a 1-inch bleed to the file. I can do it here because I know, I know what all of this will look like at the time of printing. Or you could open up a file and tweak it. Now, this tool, what I'm going to show here, one of the things we've added in the newest version of this software is we've added drag and drop functionality. So for all of you using older versions of Onyx that had to hit file open, now you can just drag and drop this. I can just drag and drop this into the window, and it brings up this box, the job properties window. This is a simple one that just allows me to select my printer. If I wanted to do order number, company, customer, this information on here is information that a lot of people also do not use. And my recommendation today, if you take anything from the class, is I would start filling this in. Why should you start filling this in? When you're working, and you guys have, you've all been printing a while, when you have files sitting in here, a lot of files in here, it's easier to search for files using this information here. If you're checking for file stuff you've done, this information here, easier to search for this. So I bring this in here. Now, notice how my default quick set, I have default, that's fine. I don't have any quick set set up, but I bring my files in here. Now, I want to, I didn't know what I wanted to start out with, but I know, okay, I need to make some changes to this. I open the job editor. Now, what the job editor is, it is not a, you can't actually, it's not a design file. It doesn't actually design files. What it does is it just allows you to see the visual changes, visually the changes you're making to a file. So in here, if I were to change the size for this or rotate it, and I wanted to see that and see what it would look like before I actually, sent it to print, I can make changes here, hit apply, and it would refresh it and show me what that looks like, pretty much. So this is where, the job editor comes into hand. I show this because when you're setting up the initial quick sets, until you get very familiar with it, take one file that you're working with and then use the job editor to figure out exactly what you want to do. So if I get to finishing, and like I said, I will do with the bleed. I say all my files, I like to have, 2-inch bleeds, if that's what it is. Why is this so small? And I want to have 2-inch bleeds. My bleed type is mirror. I'm going to go a solid color so you can see that very well. But yes, this is what we like to do to all our files. It is just the way we print. I can also do this for tiling actually. So if you're doing car wraps and you need to tile stuff, I could set up a quick set for tiling as well. But yeah, so I've done this. I've said, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what we do. That's fine. I have this set up, and then I can just go in here, export as a quick set. Hit save. And this is the thing I always tell people is, make sure your quick set actually means something to you. Whatever it means in your shop, whatever you want to call it, just make sure it's something you recognize. And I always say, hey, name it as close to what you were hoping to accomplish. So this one I'm calling 2-inch bleed, because it lets me know, like, okay, that's the primary thing about this quick set that I'm interested in. I hit save. I'm just going to resubmit this. Now this file has, we know that I did not, set it up for the other 2 files. I only did it for the first one that I was working with. But if I went in here, go to File, go to Configure Printer, and then I came to QuickSet, I see this import button in here. I hit import, I go to my desktop or wherever I save them. Now, one of the other reasons why actually creating this and saving them is my computer goes down. If you save this to like an external hard drive, something, my computer goes down, I have to reinstall Onyx. If you have all of this, then when you reinstall Onyx, you can bring back all of these settings. In the new version, we do an automatic backup now where we will back up all of this, but again, there's no harm in making sure you have manual backups. So I bring this in and save this, say import, and now it's there. And I can prove it works because this had a 2-inch bleed. This doesn't have a bleed, this doesn't have a bleed. If I selected this two now, and I said apply QuickSet, I did 2-inch bleed. When I hit apply, it will re-rip the files. But as you can see, it's added my 2-inch bleed. So again, instead of me going in and tweaking these remaining files manually, I literally set it up as a QuickSet, and I did that, and he added it. Another way for, and one of the other things in the Onyx software that we've done is to make it easy. Yes, you have to build a QuickSet, but to always make sure you can call up the QuickSet. In this window here now, I know for some of you that might not have the recent version of the software, that window, when you go back to your Onyx shop, if you go back to your stores, shops now, you probably only see something that says print info console in here. We've added this print info tab, which actually shows you how many jobs are sitting in the nest. So pretty much how many jobs are sitting on that print preview screen. You now have a count for that. But we also have this QuickSet window where if I wanted to apply the QuickSet that I've just built to another file that I've set up, I don't even have to just drag and drop into this screen like I did before. I can literally just drag and drop now. So I have my QuickSets window here. I go to 2-inch bleed, and I can drag and drop new files into this window. And they'll come into the rib with my 2-inch bleed. And I use this because, but again, you could have the QuickSet. It could even be a color correction. It could be, we put a little bit of cyan tint on stuff, whatever you wanted. The stuff you tend to repeat the most, you'll always have those one-offs, but for the stuff you repeat, you want to have a QuickSet. It will literally speed up everything you're doing. The other tool I'm going to mention here, Cut Server. This is our print and cut module. It's very possible some customers are not using this. If you have a print and cut device and roll-to-roll cutter, we do have support for almost all the popular brands, Graphtex, Summers, whatever it is. You can do a workflow where you print in the Onyx Rip software. You select the appropriate cutter that you want to use, and we print the marks for you. You do not have to go to a design software to create those. If you tell us, hey, I have a Graphtex, and I want to cut this with a Graphtex, we will put the required registration marks, everything the Graphtex needs on that file to be able to, take the finished print job and cut it. We will put that automatically. This cut server is what we use to manage the cutters. So you can set up the cutter in here. And then it sits in here. And you can have multiple, if you have different, cutting devices in your shop, you can set up individual ones. But yes, if I came in here, again, comes down to the QuickSet again. Most of the stuff we do is QuickSet. So in here, 2-inch bleed, I can create a new one here and simply call it print and cut. I know it's not every time I print I'm going to cut. But for the stuff I need to cut, I call it print and cut. I come in here, I select my cutter. I say, hey, I'm working with a GraphTech FC9000, and I hit OK. Okay. Now, as long as my file has cut data in it, and by cut data I mean, as long as I can open, I've already created cut files in my design software. When I bring it into the Onyx RIP software, and I select the right quick set, I'm just telling it like, hey, I want to be able to so if I brought this in here and I say, hey, I know I want to cut this using my GraphTech, it brings the file in there. And again, I don't have to create a cut file for a cut path for every single file. Create it for one, but if I needed to do copies of it, what I just did now was double click it. If I double click on any image, it just brings up the job properties window. I have some options here, not as robust as I had in the quick set or in the job editor, but I have some options here if I need to make quick changes. But I do this, I bring it in here, and I've told it like, hey, I plan on cutting to my GraphTech. I don't need to worry about, now in prior versions, we didn't actually have a way to visually represent what that looked like before you printed it. You kind of had to take it on faith. It worked, but you had to take it on faith. The new version, and I couldn't show you this yesterday, I don't know if you noticed on the screen, you see how now we show you what it's going to look like for this. So when this prints, we will put everything that is required on it. And then you send that, the cut pad actually goes. So if I hit print here, and this is the workflow in Onyx. As soon as you hit print, we send to your printer. As soon as you've sent it to your printer, we don't wait for the print to be done. We send the corresponding cut file to Onyx, to cut server. And now it's sitting in there. And I know that once I'm done printing, I have the required, the matching cut. I put it on my cutter, I hit cut now, it starts to cut. Simplifies your process for print and cut. Any questions on that? I mentioned swatch books before, about how swatch books can help you hit match colors. Now, the stuff I handed out, gentlemen in the other class had asked about Panto. So, one of the things we've come up with is, we just came up with this. It is in the latest version of the software. It's called the Onyx Color Reference Library. And what this is I mentioned in the last class, I mentioned in the last class how the general rule of thumb that has been in the printing industry is your customers dictate color to you. They tell you what to print, and then you do it. You have to do it to get the business. That is fine when you're working with corporate color specific, Coca-Cola, Delta, whoever that has a color recipe. But for most customers, what they see on screen or what they see under this lighting condition is not what you're going to see when we go out there under the sun. What the color reference library is a color space that we've come up with at Onyx. This isn't a Pantone thing. We still have those functionality in our RIP software. This is a color space that we've come up with that shows you, that tells you what your printer can print. So the way you would use this practically is the chart I handed out. We make this available in your samples folder when you install the software. All of these colors, you would print this chart and you would put it on a wall. And the booklet, we also make those book pages available. You would have that booklet. You could literally have it, printed, email copies of it to your customers. We're also going to make the ASC file for this as well available so you can import it into Adobe. But when you print this, this is going to show you what your printer can print. Not what somebody else expects that your printer can print, but what your printer can print. And we have a validation for these colors that is available to you, the owner, the business, the operator, that tells you how well you're hitting this color space. So when you print this, as you see on the booklets, they are all named colors. So Onyx, named colors. If you choose the validation, if the name is highlighted in green, it means that color that is highlighted with the name in green printed between 0 and 2.0 delta E. That is the industry standard for what is accurate. If it prints with a blue, it means it's between 2 and 5 delta E. And if it has no color on the name, if the name isn't color coded, it means you're outside of 5 delta E range. Why does this matter? This is how you should be selling print. You should have this chart, your colors. The customer says, in your example, I want to print this pink. I have my pink space. I have this chart on my wall printed with my OK printer that tells me I can hit this. All my pinks had the green tag, so I know they were under 2.0 delta E. I tell the customer, which pink do you want? And he picks the pink, and I know I can hit that because I've done it already. So instead of starting from his request, you're now telling him this range of reds, this range of gray, this range of blue. I know I can hit this because I've done it already. So you mentioned color management tools, shortcut. This is it. This is literally, instead of trying for every single customer to try to figure out exactly what they expect, you're like, I took the steps and I've gotten all of this. Tell me which one you want. And you can actually hit it in there. And to even make it easier to use this, even for your brand colors, to convince them that, hey, maybe your recipe, yes, you have this recipe. Maybe my 6-color printer cannot hit this, but maybe I can get close enough. And so we've tied not just the Pantone, but these named colors that are proprietary to Onyx. This is an Onyx tin. You will not see this anywhere else. And you might be asking, like, there might be a thought like, who told us we could make a color space? The person that came up with the stuff you're looking at, his name is Max Derhag. He has a PhD in color science. He's our longest running Onyx employee. He's been with us for 34 years. That is his credential with Onyx. His credential in the industry. I mentioned the current ICC profiling standard, ICC Max. The Max is for Max Derhag. He's the guy that worked on the current standard that is used in the industry. He sits on the board. He's the guy for color in this industry. So when we say at Onyx that we know color management, we're not just saying that as a selling tool. We literally have the guy that says this is what color should be, and he works for Onyx. So he came up with that color space. That was actually, he did that almost 20 years ago. That was his PhD thesis. That color space he created was what his PhD thesis was based on. So he decided to bring it into the software. And we have ways to test. In the swatch books that I showed, because it's a named color, it's an Onyx named color, even after you printed it, the customer gives you a brief. If you search in here, you can still use the same swatch book technique that I showed you to actually print a visual chart and still give them, and then they decide what they want and you replace that. So, part of the reason why this came out at the right time is, again, ties back to the question he asked about Pantone and other people not playing nice. There has been that whole conversation where, there's been threats about, we're going to pull this out of your software, we're going to pull this out of your software, we're going to do this. Even though we still have that relationship with Pantone, we're kind of forward thinking. Is there a time when, it's harder to get access to those things? And how can we make it so that customers have this thing that they own because they bought this RIP software that they can actually use to continue to print and to continue to get color consistency? So everything kind of came together around the same time. It wasn't like we knew about it beforehand. We were working on this, and then when that came, it sped up. And I mentioned this because I don't know if any of you went to ISA. Part of the stuff they spoke about at ISA a lot was stuff like this. Was a lot of people, there's actually videos from ISA's seminars where they're talking about how, and it's funny because I watched the video, and the people that made those videos are people that have been the experts for like the last 30 years. And they say the mistake we made from day one was not telling people that matching color was not about your customer telling you what to match, but you telling them what to match. So now the shift is coming back around to, we should be the ones dictating what correct color is and not people telling you what it is. So as we progress this year, you'll start to see more conversations about this stuff. We've just gotten there first. You'll start to see other people coming up with solutions, saying, hey, we have this color space, we have stuff like this, we've gotten there first. Yeah.
So once you've selected your Onyx color off the chart, and you've decided that's what the customer wants, is the best thing to do to go back to the original file, change the color?
Yes. So for you, because we make the ESC file extension available, so customer picks the book, it says, hey, this is the one I want. You, whoever is designing the file, working in pre-press, you have the ESC library, this same stuff in there. You would select that as your swatch.
Right, that's the best way to go back.
That's the best way to do it.
Change it to your
Exactly. Tag it in the file. When you bring it in, we will see the name and call up the same color, and because you've tagged it in the file. So we know you designed it with Onyx 298, and that's what we'll call up when we're printing it. And you will see the consistency, because again, the first thing you did when you got this was you printed the chart, and you know it should look like this, because I've already done this.
Is there a way to do it in like Adobe to add like?
That's the ESC library I was talking about.
That's
what an ESC library is.
Okay.
Yes, you bring it into Adobe.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, the extension for Adobe is .asc. So it's not me to say Adobe. I always say ESC library. But that's, yes, we make that available as well. So for free, like when you buy this, so this isn't an extra fee. When you buy the recent version of our software, you will find this in the samples folder. I mentioned the samples folder because, again, we're talking about Onyx tools here. I know it's technically not a tool, but in all your Onyx installations, if you go to the drive where it was installed, we have a samples folder in there. The samples folder has a bunch of useful files to use to test stuff. it has what we call the backlit evaluation. Before you print the backlit, we have a file that has been set up precisely to show you what the backlit should print like. You could print that file out before you print your backlit and test. We have a bunch of like pretty useful files that have been set up perfectly for you to test some stuff in them. And that samples folder, yeah, is free. It just comes with your software install. That's where you will find the booklets that I gave you. So that booklet that I gave you, no special sauce in building that. I literally took the pages, printed it on media, as you see, and clipped it together myself. So you'll find that in there. You'll find the Adobe extension in there as well for you to bring into Adobe. ColorCheck. Where's my booklet? Okay. So I mentioned ColorCheck before and having that check whether you want to be able, whether you can pass colors. So what ColorCheck does, and this requires a spectrum, is, let's say I got a job, and I wanted to, they asked me to print whatever color, some yellow, but it was a big job, and I knew I was going to use a whole roll of media